Welcome back to Bible class, everybody. We're so glad to have you. Mr. Davis has been helping me out a lot today. He's been off, so we have a whole lot of special things to do with you tonight. Mr. David, have you learned anything since we've been doing our Bible classes?
Oh yeah, lots.
Me too. I have a lot. We've learned even more this week about some of the Bible stories we're going to talk about. In our Bible story tonight, we're also going to talk about musical instruments. What is your hobby, Mr. David?
I love to play guitar.
I love to listen to Mr. David play guitar. I like to play the piano. So that's our hobby. We enjoy playing music. And so in our story tonight, we'll talk about a little bit about the Jewish instruments. They didn't have the same things we have now. They didn't have a guitar, did they?
No.
Not like we have. Or a piano. But they had other instruments. A lot of them they made. Also, we have something special. All of the Bible bears dressed up like characters in our Bible stories that we've had for the last several weeks. So if you don't know the characters when the bears come around to their turn to show you their dress-ups that they are in, you might want to go back and review some of the stories we've talked about earlier. So come on and join us while we look at the bears doing their costumes of the Bible stories, okay? Okay, this bear looks like he's got on a scarecrow hat and maybe some straw right here. And he's getting ready to throw the leaves like Mr. David and I did when he sings about God made leaves. He even has a little pumpkin in front of him. I think this was our God made fall lesson. He really had this tucked behind. He wanted to be Thor, but I said, no, we're not doing Halloween tonight. We're doing Bible story characters. So he had to put that under his chair and save it for later. That was our compromise. Okay, this bear didn't bring very much. We have only two things to guess from. He was a little minimalist in his costume. He has a snake and a tree. Does anybody remember who ate the apple on the tree or the fruit, the forbidden fruit that God said don't eat? I bet this is Adam. It's not Adam, Mr. David. Can you guess who it might be?
Is it Eve?
Eve, this is Eve bear. That was a good costume. Now let's look at the next one. This bear has God keeps his promises and a rainbow. What is this? Do you see this? Is it a hammer? Oh, and he brought a bag to show and tell, Mr. David. Look, what's that? 2 elephants and a giraffe. I don't know that story. Do you, Mr. David? Oh, 2 elephants, a giraffe, and a lion. Is that in our story? No. That's the male lion and the female lion. And let's see if we have the male giraffe and the female giraffe. We have 2 of every animal. I bet you know who this is. Can you say who this is? I heard everybody scream, Noah. Good job. This looks like he's wearing a headdress. And he has a lot of stars. Do you think he's decorating a Christmas tree? And do you think he's a shepherd? No. What do you think this one is? It's an older man and an older woman laughing. Yes, that's what this bear is. They had a baby named Isaac. Is it Abraham? Yes, that's what all the stars are for. God said, I will give you as many children as the stars, more than you could count. But they started with one named Isaac. I bet everybody knows who this one is. Is it Jonah? No. Who could it be? It's got a beautiful coat on. It starts like Joe. Do you remember if it's Joseph? Yay, you guessed it. We only have one more bear after this. Now, Joseph was the one that got sold way down into Egypt. Just one man down into Egypt long ago. And there were 12 brothers. They sold him down into slavery. Remember that part of our story? Okay, don't have as many as the stars yet. This looks like the Egyptian princess. Is that who you are? Yes. Wow, and what's in her basket? Do you see down in there? Is that baby Moses? She's going to take him home and she's going to raise him because if she didn't, he would have been killed. She saved him from being killed, and she took him to live in the palace with Pharaoh She raised him as her own child. Let's see what this princess brought down in here. That's an O. O. M-O. Does that look right? What's the name of the baby? Can you guess? Is his name Mose? No. There's an E. Let's turn it around right. The Egyptian princess named this baby Moses. M-O-S-E-S. Does that look right, Mr. David?
Mm-hmm.
That's where our story was. Moses is the man that's going to take all of the 600,000 Hebrews out of Egypt back to the land that they should be living in, not as slaves.
Do you remember when the princess came down to the water and she saw the little girl, Miriam, watching over her little brother? Her brother had been hidden for 3 months. Then he got to where he was making too much noise. They couldn't keep him quiet anymore. Maybe he was starting to coo and talk. So the mama, Jochebed, made a little basket and put him down in the Nile River. And Miriam, the sister, was given the job to look after that baby near the water. So she must have been a good big sister to have done that, I think. To be trusted by the water with a baby. I think that was she must have been a really nice, dependable big sister. And when the princess came down, Miriam even thought to say, do you want me to get a mama to come help you take care of the baby? Would you have done that? Would you have had the nerve to say that to a princess? To say, well, I can find somebody who can feed your baby. And that little girl right here grew up to be Miriam, the sister of Moses. They were brother and sister long ago. But then she grew up to be an older Miriam. You see them? That's Moses, the leader, and Miriam, the sister. Moses had a brother named Aaron and a sister named Miriam, and we're going to talk more about Miriam in just a minute. Remember, Moses went to the king Pharaoh, talked about him, said, let my people go. And Pharaoh said, no, I'm not going to. And finally, there are so many things done that Pharaoh said, take everything and leave. You people smell bad to us. We don't like the way you smell. Get out of here. You've made all of this ruin of our crops, and our firstborn child is even dead, so you need to leave. So Moses did, took them, and they left.
Do you see what we have here? You see all these ocean balls? These are ocean blue, and these are clear like the water. And Mr. David emptied out 7 bags of these balls. Each bag had 70 in it, so we have a lot of balls. In our story last week, we talked about the Red Sea. Do you remember that? And it was an amazing event because 600,000 men had to cross over the sea to get out of Egypt and to go into the Promised Land. That's the first place they had to trust in God. And do you know how God chose to show his strength? He sent an east wind, an easterly wind that blew all night long. He had to get it just dry enough for all the people to walk down through the Red Sea. And not just the 600,000 men, but also all of their families, their wives, their children. They probably took lambs with them, and they took all kinds of gold and silver out of Egypt. And so right when they got to the Red Sea, they said, Moses, why did you bring us here? Now we're trapped. The Egyptians are coming after us fast. What were you thinking? And God had a plan all along. He could have taken them up north through the Philistines' land. That would have been a lot closer, right, Mr. David?
Mm-hmm.
But he thought if they got into a battle, maybe the Hebrew people would decide to go back to Egypt. So he brought them down close to the Red Sea on the beach facing the Red Sea. And they panicked right when they heard the Egyptians were coming. They thought, God doesn't keep his promises. He said he was taking us to a land that was going to be blessed and filled with milk and honey. What can we do? And God sent the wind, and it blew, and it parted the water back on either side. And it was dry ground for them to walk through. All of the people. And how many miles did we hear it was, Mr. David? Can you remember on that documentary? It was like miles that they walked.
13 miles through the Red Sea.
Yeah. That's amazing that they all made it safely to the other side. Did any of the Egyptians make it safely to the other side? No, God took care of them. They brought 600 chariots that are still in the Red Sea. And the Hebrew people saw that they were saved and they praised God. Okay, these are the instruments that I was talking about. These are all the ancient Jewish instruments. I think you may know this looks like a ram's horn, and that's what this one's called. These are the ones that it looks to me like they blew into. The shofar, we've heard of that before maybe, and I know you've heard of a trumpet. That looks a whole lot like our trumpets today. That's going to be in some of our Bible stories. In fact, when God spoke to Moses on the mountain, God's voice sounded like a trumpet. That's the first time you've actually heard of that one maybe. And then you go over here, these look like, maybe they made them out of something like reeds or bamboo. I don't know, that looks like they put several together here. Okay, this is the double flute. Does it look like a flute to you? Mr. David had one of these that's just made out of bamboo that made him think he would blow on that a little bit and see if it sounded like maybe the old flutes long ago. See how that's tied together, a bunch of bamboo flutes? That kind of looks like this one right there, doesn't it? What do you think the name of that one is? It probably has something to do with flutes. It's called the vertical flute. It's all in a line. So this is the lyre. Mr. David has been working on playing that this week. It looks like a harp, but it's called something like a kinnor. I'm not sure exactly. These are cymbals and a bell and a tambourine. Is this the tambourine, Mr. David? So you see that? That's sort of like the tambourines that you might have today that you play with. Well, Miriam led the women in a song with her tambourine as they came across the Red Sea and saw that they were saved. She led the women in the song, and she must have brought her tambourines with her, must have known there was going to be a reason to celebrate as they left Egypt. And all of the women praised God, and they sang this song. Mr. David, do you want to say it for us?
Sing to the Lord. He has won a glorious victory. He has thrown horses and their riders into the sea.
That's right. And they praised God. It was like a big parade they were having. It was like they had made it through the water, and they said, thank you to God. You see these children all dancing and singing? You see a tambourine in the picture, Mr. David?
Mm-hmm.
Was it this one? No?
Right there.
Mr. David found it. And some of the children had maracas and triangles. That's our musical instruments today, but we still have the tambourine, don't we? Now we're going to sing one song, and we're going to let the bears all hold a little flashlight to sing. Is it This Little Light of Mine? You want to see the bears sing it?
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
When Israel was in Egypt land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down.
Let my people go, they shall go.
Mr. David for making our sticker page tonight. And you see all of these little gray things right here, these stones. Those are the 10 Commandments. And the people had been slaves for so long, and there were so many of them that God needed to make some rules for them. And that's what happened. Moses went up on top of Mount Sinai and got the 10 rules. Put God first. That little girl singing a song about God. Worship only God, not all these things like toys. Can you see that? Is that in the shot? Number 3, don't misuse God's name. We only talk about God when we're praying to him or praising him or teaching about him, right? And use it if it's in the holy way. Rest on the 7th day and keep it holy. That little girl's going to church. Obey your parents. That way you'll live long. Never hurt anyone. That would be sad to have to get a Band-Aid because you hurt somebody. Keep your wedding promises. That's one for mamas and daddies, isn't it? Don't steal. So that little boy should not take things that are not his. Number 9, always tell the truth. That little boy looks like he broke something with his soccer ball, but he's thinking about saying the cat might have done it. Do you think? And number 10, don't wish that the things other people get were yours. Even on their birthday, you should be happy for them. Don't wish for other people's stuff is number 10. Those are 10 good rules that Moses came down from the mountain to share with the people. Well, when he came down from the mountain, do you remember that part of the story, Mr. David? That was fabulous. He got so mad at the people that he broke all of the tablets of stone. Do you remember what they were doing? They were displeasing God. Can you think what they were worshiping? Aaron, Moses' brother, had said, take your earrings out. All the boys, take out your earrings, and we're going to put something in the pot. We're going to melt it, and we're going to make something for you to worship because Moses has been gone so long getting these 10 commandments. Who knows if he's ever coming back? And the people said, we need a God. We need a God to worship. So they made the golden calf. And Moses said to Aaron, why have the people done this? And Aaron said, well, it just hopped out of the fire. A cow just appeared out of the fire, a golden calf. Do you believe that? Could that have happened, Mr. David? I think he was telling a lie. That was one of the 10 commandments, to not tell a lie. Oh, that made Moses so sad. Well, the people knew then that Moses was going to be their leader. They didn't need a calf. And they wanted him to lead. They wanted to know when to go on their journey and when to stop on their journey. And so as long as Moses took them on their journey, there was a pillar of clouds in the daytime that they were led by right here. My hands are... See the pillar of the cloud right there, Mr. David? And all the people journeyed through the desert watching that cloud as they went from Egypt over near Saudi Arabia. And now, at night, you see that pillar of fire? That way they knew God was leading them and Moses was their leader, but God chose Moses to be the leader. God did an amazing thing making that water come back. And they walked 600,000 men, and then on top of that, the women and the animals and their children. You see that? That was the crossing of the Red Sea. It was so amazing that they still talk about it today, right there at the side of the Red Sea. We've seen a documentary, and we'll try to post it below, and you can watch it too. So for our craft tonight, I printed off a tree. You can either color a tree trunk and make some branches on it, or you can print one like this free online like I did. I'll link it below if I'm able to. And then if you've got paint at home and you want to make a pretty fall tree, you can like that. If you want to do that, or you might even want to do thumbprints on your tree, which is sometimes fine, like that. You can do crayons. I have a few crayons here. I might choose the oranges and the yellows and the reds, because it's looking like fall outside. Or every time of year, at this time of year, I start thinking about the burning bush. So let me show you how I'm going to make the burning bush. I'm going to go ahead and use what I've already done, but I'm trying to make paint turn into fire. Does that look good, Mr. David?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which one of these brushes should I use? This zigzag one? What do you think, Mr. David? Does that look like fire?
Yeah.
Let's see how this looks. I've never done this with this brush before. Oh, that looks like the burning bush, doesn't it? I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get some more yellow, a little yellow come through over this side. So that bush that Moses saw when he was taking care of the sheep, it burned, but it never burned up. And God spoke to him from that bush and said, I'm ready for you to go get your people out of slavery. And Moses said, I don't speak very well. I'm a slow speaker. I can't do that. But God said his brother Aaron could help him. There's my burning bush. I think I'm going to help. Hang that up on my refrigerator. And we'll hang Mr. David's sticker page up too. I hope you get to do some kind of fun craft at home, but be sure to put down something underneath it and print your tree onto something like cardstock like Miss Cheryl did. Okay. Good thing you can see this, Moses.